I've just been outside and I've sanded the top wing into a nice even section. Quite pleased with that, went right easily. So now I'm just marking up these, because if you remember, we built the wing square to the root. So I'm just going to mark this up now and cut this off square to the tip, because I've got to glue in the triangular pieces. I'm using ink because I want a nice clean edge to cut to off that tip. Anyway, okay, so make sure you got this the right way around. You've got the shallow angle going that way. In other words, thickest part of the wood, see, that's more 5/8, that's more 3/8. 3/8 thinner bit sticks on the wingtip like that. Good. Let's just make sure that's sanded nice and flush. Should put that on a square edge like that and just give it a quick okay. I'm just going to move the plan out of the way now because I don't want to stick the wing to it. Let's see, now a bit glues to the wingtip, so we'll get that drying, I think. Now, what do we do with end grain? We give it one like that, smooth it in, just let that dry a minute, let that squeeze out, and in like that. Just going to take off that squirt of glue there. It'll sand off anyway, but okay. You can carve it with a scalpel if you want. You probably know not to come this way because you'll split the grain into the good wood that you're trying to save, so always go down the ski slope, as it were. I've just glued together the carbon rod into the dihedral brace. It's a nice tight fit. The next step is to sand the wing roots so it's a lovely fit to each other. So we don't glue that in yet, but we can use it as a guide so as we can sand the wing roots. So I've got to sand an angle on the wing roots. So these wings come up of 35mm tip dihedral on the first part of the wing here. So that's what I'm going to do. So we don't glue it yet. So I'm going to sand an angle on there and likewise on there and start offering it up. Make sure I can get it a beautiful fit before I glue it together. I've got some Lego bricks here. I put that up there like that. That actually measures, 4 Lego bricks measures 40, like that. So that's obviously too high. I'm going to put that right at the end of the wingtip, and then this end I'm going to have, I need a 1/4 inch, which is about 5mm, 6 actually, but it'll be close enough, like that. So now, as long as I sand this vertically, which it should do, it should put in the desired angle. That is pretty impressive. It looks impressive on the top. How does it look underneath? This is the thing. It's pretty much roughed into shape quite nicely. Not displeased with it. Not much to say about it really. It went quite smoothly. Okay, and that has to be cut down through until it reaches the top of the plywood former, which is exactly on the top of the fuselage line. So as long as I cut this, I'm not cutting it straight down, I've got to cut it at an angle to match up with the to provide a slopey front for the hatch. So just going to eyeball this in. It's not the end of the world if it's slightly off, but obviously it'd be nice to get it right. The angle is quite shallow. Okay. Now you remember we only put a little blob of glue at the front there, so there we go. Absolutely perfectly in there, look. Here I'm going to glue my finger to this. Got it off just in time. Okay. That's quite nice. So just looking at the plan, it sits behind there. There's a gap there. The trailing edge of the wing. I don't know if you can see that. The trailing edge of the wing isn't sitting down on the. You can see that isn't sitting down on the fuselage. So in there, so I'm going to have to put a bit of packing on now, I guess. Something's not quite right. Right, this is what I deduce. I've sanded that reasonably flat. The plan shows it there being quite a small lip at the back of the trailing edge section that was glued in the centre. Part number 3. This is quite a big lip on here. This is a very much smaller lip, and therefore, because the lip is bigger, there is a gap under the wing on the trailing edge. Right, what I decided to do, I've got a piece of 1/8 balsa, reasonably hard. I'm going to glue it in this position here and shape it down to fit, to take up the gap. I'll have to cut out the centre section to allow for the dihedral. Okay, this is what I've done. Put on one piece of wood on the back, shaped it down, and then cut the centre out to allow me to put the dihedral in. So now, when I put it on, it's approximately there. As you can see, it's a much better fit. So what I'm going to do now is to glue that piece on the back, piece 33, which is the backstop for the wing, which now, as it turns out, is the perfect fit width-wise. So don't need to do anything there. So glue that one on there. And I've got a secondary lip here, which I think I might sand flush with the fuselage because I don't want that taking any strain. It'll split anyway, so I'll sand the fuselage flush there, but while I've got the glue out, I'll pop this on now. Pretty much right on the back there. Yes, alright, I've glued my finger to it. Okay, let's peel the skin off. Sand the side. This is why I didn't put the dowel in. I wouldn't be able to sand that otherwise. Nice and flush. That side. Nice and flush. Okay, now I'm going to sand that flat there. That's not going to catch on it now when the wing twists because it's only banded on. Say only banded on. It is my favourite method of fitting because it takes up all any problem landings or anything. Nothing breaks, it just twists. So let's offer it up. Now we're getting there. That's nice. That sits there nicely now, nice and solid. I've got to now shape the back of this to fit over the wing. If I can get a rough curve in, then I can put a pen line to follow the curve around and come up to it. So just looking at that to give me a rough idea. Maybe I can pencil a rough line in anyway. Spent a few happy minutes just shaping the cockpit down. Still needs a little bit of fine tuning, but now it's quite important we get this in exactly the right position. Quite important because it can affect the toe. then when that's dry, I drill through that 1/16 hole and glue another little disc on the bottom, plywood. Pop on some adhesive, give it a smear around. Quite important that this sticks quite well. Make sure the curved bit is on the leading edge, else it will be back to front. Stick it down far enough so the bottom edge is level with the bottom of the wing, because then I'm going to sand that straight across. At least that's the theory. So we'll let that dry. I've done the other one, we'll let that dry. It has to be cut to length first because it is over length. So putting it on the plan view of the plan, I can see that it's, can you see down here? Yep, that it's a few centimetres over length, so I'm just going to mark that. It's not hypercritical, but I'm just going to give it a bit of a score, like that. So I'm just going to clean up that cut at the end, give it a smooth down, and then rough up the bottom of the boom. Also I'm going to rough up the boom where it goes inside the fuselage. And that dovetail, that's lovely, isn't it? Do you know what, I think I'm going to use epoxy. It's quite a critical joint, isn't it? So let me epoxy that and come back to you shortly. So I'm doping the wing and I've just done the fuselage. Because this is shrinking dope, I'm going to, it says give it 3 coats. I'm going to give a sand in between coats, of course. I'm going to give this a coat top and bottom because it's quite thin wood and I don't want it to warp as the dope dries on it, so I should paint it top and bottom. I've in fact thinned this dope down possibly 50-50. I'm going to give this a coat, let it dry, sand it, give it 2 more times. So I'll come back to you when I've done all that. The fuselage has now had 3 coats of dope, as has the tail. Just push the tail boom in temporarily because I just want to glue on the, which they haven't told us to do yet, but they don't tell you to do. And that's glue in the control horns onto the elevators. At least I don't think they tell you, but you can glue in. Just a little dab of glue each end is fine. Hi guys, it's going quite well, isn't it? So I'm just going to hinge the elevators now. Really lightweight hinges, so we'll see how we get on. It's a pretty straightforward process. Perhaps the way to do it would be to drop the end in the glue like that, push it in. Just mark it for now and go back in a minute. Alright, let's just open those holes up. Push that pin in. This will be it, guys. There we are. Okay, progress is being made while you've been away. I've just been, well, let me start. I've put some transfers on and painted the model. What I've done, I thought I'd quite like the box art, etc. So I thought I'd replicate that. So the fuselage sides have doped and bottom, and I've painted black on the cockpit and blue on the nose. Stuck the Kavan rc.com sticker on the tail and painted the reverse side blue. So it's looking very sweet indeed. Very, very happy with that. The other thing I've done on the wing is to put a blue band on the wing, exactly the same as the model pictured, and put on the owl transfer and the decline Uhu transfer, oops, knock that over, and the Kavan transfer on that wing. So it's looking very much like the picture, this one here. The thing I'm doing right now is to playing with the radio installation. What I would like to do is to fit up the little power pod. So I'm trying to find out what I need for that. With that in mind, I've got the servo tray. It's not glued in yet, but I've got two dinky little servos, which hopefully are man enough to do the job. I think they will be. Excuse me. I've got a 12 amp Turnigy speed controller, because if I put the motor on, I'm going to need it. So that will go around there, and probably sit back here, and that will plug into the motor. Batteries, I've got a couple of, I've got a 450 milliamp, let me catch it. That will fit in there nicely, in fact rather beautifully. If it turns out that I need the nose weight, as soon as I've located the C or G, I can always put a bigger battery in, and then the receiver can actually go right in beside it. Look, if I don't need a bigger battery. If I do need a bigger battery, then that receiver can go where they've got it. Well, in fact, they've got the servos back here, and their receiver is down inside here. The reason I was going to put the servos further back, you can see that there, yep, let me bring you in a bit. The reason I was going to put the servos further back instead of further forward was because the push rod outers are short, and obviously I can bring the push rods themselves, which are quite fine, quite a fine wire, not sure what gauge it is, but it's certainly, well, it's very, very fine. That's amply long enough to reach the full length somehow. So that's what I've done so far. So look at all the wires hanging out of it. Thankfully radio equipment is pretty small these days. So there we are so far. I'm going to fiddle around a little bit more with this, and then I'll come back to you and report in again. This is interesting, guys. So I'm making up the pylon mount. What I've done, I've glued the three components together in situ, and I'll put the little balsa fairing on afterwards. But I'm going to set this up at 90 degrees. It doesn't really go into any details on the plan or instructions, so I'm going to set that up at 90 degrees to the boom, like that. But on my other power pod glider, I've got 2 or 3 degrees pointing uphill, so the motor's pointing up, so it sort of pulls the model up. Okay, so we go. Oops. So there we are, a small amount of movement, but that will be enough to go from pretty much 90 degrees to the boom. 90 degrees to the boom up there, and then I'm going to angle it down so as it pushes the model upwards. I think things are getting a bit long with this video now, so what I'll do is to stop it here, and then when I come to do the maiden flight, I'll just go over the radio installation and what I've done briefly just before we launch it off. What I want to do, I want to try it on the slope, I want to try it on the bungee, got a small bungee, and I want to try it with the motor. So we'll try all 3 options that the model, the 4th option is free flight as well, straight off the tow line. No, I shall do it radio controlled with the 3 options of sloping, bungeeing and motoring. So thanks for watching us, guys. Give us a thumbs up for the video. It's been quite a lot of work in editing the video, not much work in building the aeroplane, I must say. So if you want to build one, you could do a lot worse than picking one up. This one was supplied by Model Shop Leeds in the UK. It flies half as well as it looks, then it's going to be a cracking little model. Well, I'll see you in the next video. Cheers guys, that would be the maiden. Can't wait.